This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 64, the movie review of Spider-Man Homecoming. We will also be talking about the Justice League trailer. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
You know, I love that I can see you quite clearly now. You look really good.
Right?
You're not some ninja hiding in the dark. It's just like, oh man, there he is. All right, I can see my best friend.
We've been having some issues before this recording. Like, the sound kept adjusting because Skype is annoying as hell. And I somehow I ended up into like this test version of Skype. And it made me, like, everything around me was super dark, so all you can see is my teeth.
You look like a ninja.
It was pretty bad. So not only was the audio, like, messing up, but, like, the video was terrible. So this might be one of the first times where I actually send feedback to someone. It's just like, you guys are terrible at this. Fix it.
You guys are terrible at this. A strongly worded letter to Microsoft.
Oh, man. Like, they actually care.
Right. They do care, damn it. They do care.
You are defending Microsoft, sir. I don't even know what to tell you about that right now. All right, Jones. Let's get into this. All right, so the trailer for this week is Justice League. So, I have very few things to say about this trailer, but the thing that I noticed the most is it looks like they're trying to go with a little bit different tone. It's not as moody as the past couple DC movies, other than the fantastic Wonder Woman.
What?
But
huh? What are you talking? I mean,
what?
I don't agree.
No.
I don't see that.
No. Here's the thing. When you look at someone like Aquaman,
okay,
why is he so different? Like, he's just like it's like he's like this really weird version. Well, first of all, seeing Jason Momoa called Arthur Curry is just weird anyway. But the thing that's interesting is that character is like really kind of like jokey and weird. Like, why is that? Doesn't he seem a little lighthearted?
Well, I mean, maybe just from what they've shown.
But that's my point. He's just like dressed as a bat. I can dig it. And he just walks away. You're just like, what the hell is that? So I definitely understand your point when you're talking about like the actual visual tone of the movie still looks very muted and sad.
It just, everything looks like it's on a soundstage, which I hate. I mean, I know. Aren't they supposed to be fighting in Gotham?
I have no idea where they're supposed to be fighting it.
And the thing is, Joss Whedon has taken this film over, and it's due soon.
Yes, it is.
So it just, there were a lot of reshoots. The effects, I mean, they don't look done, but they look terrible.
Yeah, they look kind of rough. I'm not sure what's going on with this movie. It's just unfortunate that, I mean, we definitely lost, what's his name? Zack Snyder, part of the way through after, into post-production. So, like you were saying, Joss Whedon took over. But, I mean, I doubt if there was much that Joss Whedon could do at that point in time, right?
I mean,
because they're already in post.
Well, and he usually uses more sets, and
he does.
I mean, I think the visuals would have been stronger. Would have been more practical stuff. CG is at its best when it's mixed with practical. Yes. Well, and like and just from this trailer, it just doesn't look that high quality.
The thing about it is it's not necessarily just the practical effects. It's when you film on sets. Like, like, you don't even really need to have the practical effects to get that look. If you actually were filming on location, and then you adding the CG to it.
Yeah.
And so I get what you mean by adding the practical effects, but I don't think that's the problem with this movie. I think the problem is it's all filmed on a soundstage, and you could tell. Like, everything is CG in the background. So it's... I'm not sure why they chose to go that direction. Maybe that's one of the ways that Zack Snyder gets this look to all his movies, because they always look very muted and
well, I mean, he has a history. You know, I mean, if you go back and look at his career, this is how he's always done it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, but that was sort of disappointing because in Man of Steel, there were shots that were actually in, outdoors, like in a field or, but then a huge fight which took place in something that did not resemble a human city.
Yes.
And this one seems like that times 1,000.
Yeah, it's I'm not exactly sure how this was going to go. I think the movie itself is probably going to be lacking anyway, but just the look of it is
I mean, here's the thing. Do you really need Cyborg and Flash and Aquaman when you have Wonder Woman?
Well,
I mean, like, what the hell are they like, what are they fighting? I mean, like, at the end there, Aquaman is on the Batmobile.
Yes.
And he jumps up into the air to fight 3 little robots.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that is stupid as hell. It's a great idea, but why isn't he fighting something much bigger, or at least a swarm of them?
I don't
3
know.
Little fighting warrior bee bots? No, that is stupid. I mean, they're little guys in stunt suits.
Yes, and I understand your point there, and it's just, you can't have a Justice League movie with just Wonder Woman.
Why not? Why not?
I mean, I like Wonder Woman next to the next person, but like, you're just asking for a Wonder Woman sequel, which is fine.
No, I'm asking for a Justice League movie where it's just Wonder Woman.
Hopefully she has a much larger part in this movie than she did in Batman vs. Superman. That would automatically make the movie better. So
it's just comparatively everyone sucks.
It's really bad, man. I don't know what to say about DC's extended universe here with this Justice League movie, especially since there's another Justice League movie coming down the pike. But it's just, I don't know.
What is that? Justice League Dark or something like that? All right. Can I'm going to break protocol here.
All right. What?
Because I think we're going to be transitioning to Spider-Man anyway.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk about one of my favorite Spider-Man comic books. One of my favorite issues.
Okay.
Because I think it applies for the movie. And maybe we could even come back to it.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I'm just not excited about Justice League.
Well,
maybe if Joss Whedon, maybe if Joss Whedon was doing it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be interesting because he handled the Avengers.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Justice League. It's not a movie I'm very excited about seeing, so I guess we'll just end that and go into Spider-Man.
I can hear it. It feels like we've been talking about Justice League for half an hour. so I'm trying to get us away from that quagmire.
That's fine.
Okay. Amazing Spider-Man. This was a comic book from the 80s, and I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. The Amazing Spider-Man number 267.
That's very
specific. And what's awesome about it is that it might be the funniest Spider-Man comic ever written, but it stays true to the story. And Spider-Man tries to stop a thief.
Yeah.
At the beginning of it, and the thief goes into the subway tunnel, but he has tokens, and Spider-Man tries to hop over the turnstile styles. Yeah. And cops tackle him immediately, which is like surprisingly accurate in New York City. Like there could not be an official within 100 yards and someone's going to tackle you if you try that stuff. So the guy gets away. But Spider-Man uses his tracker, the tracker on his suit, to follow him into the suburbs. Yeah. And once Spider-Man gets out there, there's nothing that he can swing on, and he keeps falling. Like he keeps, like the branches can't support his weight. So he's having an awful time in the suburbs. Nice. And it's great because everyone out there is a little bit crazy, but no one there trusts Spider-Man. Yeah. You know, like he's known in the city and everything, but in the suburbs, he's like a weirdo creep in a uniform. And he actually gets accused by like the neighborhood watch dude there of sexually harassing his wife. Nice. So it's just like a really crazy comic where he's constantly falling out of the sky and like just missing kids who are on their little big wheels, you know.
That's awesome.
It's just and so as I was watching this, I was like, this is. I'm
sure that they looked, because there's so much of that in Spider-Man Homecoming. In this movie, I think they probably looked at that to move forward throughout this process. So I guess this is a good time then for us just to take a break, and then we'll go ahead and get into Spider-Man Homecoming. All right.
All right.
After the events of Captain America's Civil War, Peter Parker tries to balance his life as an ordinary high school student in Queens while fighting crime as Spider-Man when a new threat, the Vulture, emerges. Bam! Got that reading done. All right. This movie's directed by John Watts. Have you heard of this guy before?
Nope.
Neither have I. And you know what's... the thing is this is like his biggest movie. And the ones that he's done before were like these really low-budget movies. One of them was Clown, and the other one was Cop Car, which apparently is with Kevin Bacon. And I haven't heard of either one of those movies before. Have you heard of those?
No.
Yeah, and that was like all he had. And so I really don't know how they discovered this guy, but he did a really good job for his first really major film. So
John Watts.
Yeah, John Watts. So it leads me to believe that we're probably going to see this guy more often, I would think.
I think he should endorse light bulbs.
John Watts. His logo should be a light bulb. You know, with
a light bulb shocking song. With the tagline, "It could happen to you." I'm never changing a light bulb again, honey.
Oh man, that's terrible. Oh man, you know what? There was a time period when I was like in my old apartment, and this is before, this was a while ago, before I moved out, and the freaking the microwave light bulb went out.
Yes.
And so I was just kind of I was trying to figure it out, and so I opened it up, and I had went to the office to tell them, I need a new light bulb for my microwave, and they were just like, well, we'll send somebody over, and I'm like, it's just a light bulb, I could change it. Okay, that's the line that that sets up everything. But anyway, so I open this thing up, and it's it's kind of stuck in there, and so I'm trying to get it out or whatever, and the damn thing as I'm pulling it out, it kind of breaks a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it just like and then it's just like, and I just like get this really ridiculous shock. I'm just like, ah! And
wait a minute, what?
Well, the thing is I completely forgotten to turn off the switch for the microwave. Okay. So
ladies and gentlemen, this is an Eagle Scout talking here.
It was one of the dumbest things I had ever done.
That is really... Because...
really stupid.
A microwave can actually kill someone.
Right?
Even when it's unplugged, because it can still hold a charge.
See, I had unplugged it, but I didn't turn off the breaker. And so I just got this ridiculous shock. And I remember when I didn't replace it, and I asked the office to come and change it, and they're like, "Did you remember to turn off the breaker?" And I was just like, "Nope, I forgot." And it was just like the worst thing. Oh man,
that's killed. That has actually killed
right
grown ass men before,
right?
Because they don't know to do that.
The thing is I knew to do that, and I just didn't do it. I completely forgot to do it. I don't know what the hell my deal was that day. It was just so stupid.
This is a very intelligent human being that I'm talking to, who is an Eagle Scout, and that's no joke. Wow, that was a freebie. You got away with one there.
I definitely did.
I don't know. You know what sucks is, had you died then, I don't know who I'd be talking to right now. my little Spider-Man toys. My little Power Ranger toys.
Oh man. Oh, it's just awful. Oh man. All right. That was a good.
Where were we? I think we were going towards a break.
No, we still have to go through the characters.
Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. I'm your new host, Ian Jones.
You know, that's the best attempt that you've done at this. We've tried before.
Yes, I have. I've never gotten to my name before. Nope. We always joke about that maybe one day I should host.
Just to mix it up a little bit. But man, you can't get through the line. It's pretty bad.
No, I can't. Not even if it's written out. It's your name. Just say your name, Ian. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. I'm... Yeah.
I love the line.
My name is Name. All right. Where are we?
This movie starring Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man. He is known for being in Billy Elliot the Musical and The Impossible, which I haven't seen either one of those. But he obviously does a really good job as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think he's the best one so far. It's really good.
Yeah. So... 3 Spider-Mans, and this is an evergreen character.
Yes, it is.
So there will always be Spider-Man movies, but we've got a guy who does both parts really well.
Yep, that's the thing. He does both of them really well.
Yes.
So it's great to have him in here, and you got it immediately when you watch Civil War. You're like, this guy's got it. He has it. It's exactly how I want Spider-Man to be. It's exactly how he should be. And so it's really cool that he's able to do that. Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes or Vulture. He was in Mr. Mom, Johnny Dangerously, and Batman. I like seeing Michael Keaton on screen again. I just love it so much. It's such a great thing to see him back. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark Iron Man, who's in Weird Science, Chaplin, and Tropic Thunder. Marissa Tomei as Aunt May.
Oh, God, wow. What? Yes, he's in all those movies.
Nice.
He's Iron Man.
Yes, he's Iron Man.
In case you've been living under a rock.
Yes. I assume that people would know that he's playing Iron Man because he's Iron Man in this movie.
Oh, damn it.
Marissa Tomei was in My Cousin Vinny, What Women Want, and The Wrestler. Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. I like seeing Jon Favreau again.
I could have seen him less. I just in this movie.
That's fine, but I like seeing Jon Favreau on screen. He's in Rudy, Swingers, and Chef.
So, and he directed the first 2 Iron Men. So,
yes, he did.
I think he set the tone for what Marvel was trying to do.
He did. Yep. Zendaya as Michelle. She was in Shake It Up and Casey Undercover. I have no idea what that is. Donald Glover as Aaron Davis. He's obviously in Community and his own little show on FX, Atlanta.
He's going to be playing Lando Calrissian in this farce we have to watch next year.
Yeah, I don't know about that movie. It's
Ooh, maybe that's what we should have talked about. I think you and I need to have a discussion about firing directors and.
Well, yeah. Usually, when you start changing directors, that movie's already like before the film's even filmed,
right.
And you're firing directors because of I put in air quotes creative differences. That's usually an issue, and I think that the problem with that right now for me is not just the fact that they chose Ron Howard, but also because they're breaking from protocol. So the past few Star Wars movies they've done have been done by younger directors who were fans of the series who weren't going to fuck it up.
Well,
and I feel like there's just. I feel like it's one of those things where one of the things I enjoy about the new Star Wars movies is you're having people who grew up watching Star Wars doing so. It's like getting a professionally made fan-made film, which I think is a really positive thing. Choosing Ron Howard, I have nothing against Ron Howard. He's very hit and miss with his movies, but he doesn't even like the style of movie that he does. I don't even know why they would choose him.
I mean, other than I think that they wanted the best competent director that they could get, and he was probably available.
Probably.
There's something to be said when you go with these younger guys who sometimes can be lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
We saw how disastrous that was with a big budget movie with the Fantastic Four reboot.
Yes,
and that got Josh Trank fired, and it deprived us all of a Boba Fett movie. But I think the bigger issue is, why do we need these prequels? Like Rogue One sort of makes sense, but Gareth Edwards, who's a younger guy, got into trouble on that, and Disney stepped in, Kathleen Kennedy stepped in.
Yeah.
So it all seems fine now because that movie was a success, and people will go and see the movie. But if critically and if fan response is bad, that could be the end of it. Just like with the Amazing Spider-Man, they only had 2 movies.
Yes.
With Andrew Garfield, both of his movies made a lot of money, but they were panned. They got panned. By...
I think the biggest problem with the one with Andrew Garfield is I think he, as far as I know, he didn't want to do the character anymore, because there's no reason why they couldn't have moved forward unless the actor didn't want to do it, because they made money. We know how Hollywood works. If they make money, you'll get a sequel. It's just kind of how it is. As far as I know, he specifically stated he didn't want to do the character anymore. And I'm not entirely sure if Andrew Garfield, I think he just wanted to do other types of movies.
I just think, there's something to be said for that, but I think where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact that he stepped away when he did, when I think people didn't want, and the thing is, I liked what they were doing, but
I did too.
The fans did not, and so then for him to say, well, I'd rather do other things.
Well, that's entirely up for interpretation, I guess, depending on if he really just didn't want to do it anymore, or he was trying to step away because he didn't want to deal with the backlash. I don't know. All I know is, I enjoyed what they were doing with Amazing Spider-Man. I thought the first one was really good. I thought the second one was lacking. But I don't know. I guess all I can say is, I guess it makes sense to me when you say that they just wanted a competent director just to keep the franchise going, which is fine. It's just for me, Ron Howard is very hit and miss. And there's always issues when you have a time period where you are changing directors before filming. Like, it's almost like the movie's already dead. So I don't know how they're going to save it, even with hiring somebody who's been directing for years. It was a very competent director. So I don't know. I think that movie's going to be... I don't know. I don't think that movie's going to be very good.
So, right. Well, I mean, it's already... It's you know... It has its urban legend status.
Yes.
Sort of, you know, from bringing in acting coaches, which is not unheard of.
No.
However, it's unheard of when you're to do that 2 weeks from finishing filming, and then you're also bringing in a new director.
Yeah.
To come back and reshoot scenes because Disney doesn't have what they want.
Yes.
I mean, that's... And, you know, there's something to be said for being creative, too, where I just don't think Lucasfilm is really letting these guys do that. One of the best lines in Star Wars ever was ad-libbed. So, yeah. I guess we'll see.
All right. Now we've got onto another tangent. Jeez, man.
I'm gonna hijack this whenever I can to talk about nerd stuff.
Nice. Jacob, I think it's Batalon as Ned. And this is all he's done. Like, this is kind of his movie. He's just
Ned.
He plays Ned, and he's just like he's just an unknown kind of actor. Like, this is
the breakout star. This is the guy who's going to be getting some work.
Yeah, I would think so too. The last one I have here is Laura Harrier as Liz, who was in the One Life to Live reboot, and that was pretty much it. So,
what the hell is One Life to Live?
You don't know about One Life to Live?
No, I don't.
That soap opera series that was on for like ever?
Nope. I don't. I've already forgotten math now. You jerk. I've already forgotten something. I could have guessed that it was soap opera-y.
All right, that's
all right. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna come back.
Yep.
We're going to fire the host.
All right, let's take a break.
Let's play some music.
All right, Jones, we're back. Let's get into our quirks and likes section.
All right.
I'm hoping you have more quirks than I do, because I was struggling. Do you?
Right. I have a shitload.
Really? All right. Well, here's the deal.
Okay.
Let me say my little minor things, and then you'll take over. So
let's go. Let's do it.
One of my things that I thought was interesting story-wise is a lot of the problems that happens in this movie is kind of like it's either directly or indirectly related to Tony Stark himself.
God. Oh, bless you, sir.
What?
Thank you for saying that. It is this. Oh,
okay.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Okay,
here.
let me.
All right, go for it.
Because the thing is like, first of all, the whole reason why the Vulture's in existence is because Tony Stark takes over at the damage control thing.
Yes.
So his motivation, for the most part, is because he couldn't get work, and so that's why he's there the whole time. And that's basically, now that's not necessarily directly related to Tony Stark, but it is like it's his company that's doing it. Like, Stark Industries is the one that's working with the government to fix this, to do all the collection. And so that causes all the issues in this movie. And then you have the other issue about Tony Stark is he is not communicating to Peter Parker at all. So what's happening is Peter Parker is getting into trouble. And he's just like, that scene where he's just like, who do you think called the FBI? I'm just like, why don't you just tell him? So that way, he wouldn't have got into crap. And it would have made a lot more sense. Because obviously you have a teenager who's gained an extraordinarily large amount of power. And all of a sudden, like you think, what makes you think he's going to be responsible enough to just handle this and just sit back and just not do anything? It's not in his character, and it's not it's just not what a teenager would do, right? Like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
No, you're right on the money. I mean, so this is like the biggest issue with the movie, I think.
Yeah. The thing about me is I think the movie's so good that this isn't, I don't think it hurts it. It's just such a weird problem with this movie. So so let's just see what you have to say about it.
Okay, well, yes, Tony Stark, I mean, he is, I think, the big problem. His lack of mentorship,
yes,
leads to some very dangerous things, which happen, which Spider-Man isn't prepared to handle.
Yes.
So anyway, was that really all your quirks, or?
Well, the thing about it is the reason why I don't think it's that big of a problem is because even though it's a glaring problem with the movie and the story as a whole, I feel like this is how Tony Stark as a mentor would work. Right? Like this is like he's like the last person I would think that would be able to mentor anyone, because he's too narcissistic. He doesn't really want to push that much of himself onto mentoring someone, and it causes a shitload of problems, and it's just.
I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, he's the adult here. He's the one who brought a teenager in to fight Captain America.
Yes.
It's just, if the end game was maybe even using him as a political stunt, as to bolster the Avengers team, which is non-existent. To say that the Avengers exist anymore, I think, is a huge disservice to Civil War, because they don't. Two members do not make a team. Two members and a guy who, needs to have his spine rebuilt is not. Well, not a team anymore.
The thing is there are other groups that were on Tony Stark's side in Civil War, so like they could still be the Avengers in theory. It's just it's not. Cap,
they would need. Well, they would need Spider-Man. They would need Spider-Man, and I think it's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just disingenuous to not have to say that you have the Avengers without having Cap.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that I disagreed with in Civil War.
Yeah, I get that, and that's fine. But even just I guess that's fine. I get that. So the only other thing I have to say is a stupid little minor thing.
Sure.
And Tom Holland is in and out of his Queen's accent throughout the movie. Sometimes it's like spot on, and other times it's just not there at all. And so it goes like it changes back and forth, and it's enough for where I notice it. Because sometimes he sounds really on, but then in the next scene he's just like not doing it anymore. So
I mean, I think this was probably tough. One of the
I'm sure it's really tough.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was, because not only do you have the accent, but he's trying to do a younger
voice, yes,
too. And I felt like when they said that.
Sorry, continue going.
Oh, it's just. When they said that he was 15, I started thinking about it, and I was like, God, he's a high school sophomore. That's just too young. And Spider-Man takes place in high school, yes. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I mean, for what he's doing, let's say he's 14 when Tony Stark goes to get him, or maybe he just turned 15. It seems like he should at least be a year older.
I wouldn't be surprised if he is a year older, because in the context of when they mention he's 15 years old, Tony Stark tells him, when I pick up a kid that was 15 years old. So during Civil War, he might have been 15 years old.
Well, he calls him 12 or something ridiculous, and Spider-Man corrects him and says,
"Oh, that's right,
that he's 15."
That he's 15.
So that means he was even younger when Civil War took place, and I'm just thinking, God, this is really young.
I don't know if it's character. That. I just don't know if it's that much of a difference in time that has gone by. I think he was probably 15 before or during Civil War because he's coming home to it.
That could be, but I just feel like he should at least be old enough to drive.
That's not the direction they went. And the thing about it is there's different versions of Spider-Man that has been really young. I think the current Spider-Man is like 14. Or was it it was the Ultimate Spider-Man. I think that version of him was like 14 years old. So I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where it depends on the universe that you're reading at the time, and they just decided to go with this younger version. So it is what it is. But the other thing I wanted to mention about the voice thing is that it also makes it more difficult because I believe Tom Holland is British. So that makes it even harder for him to try to keep that accent. So, like, he maintains the American accent the whole time, but it doesn't quite sound like Queen's all the time, and that's where the problem lies. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Those are my quirks.
Okay, well, anyway, I am going to come back to this because, Spider-Man, by and large part, takes place in high school.
Yes, it does.
But I just thought he was too young.
Okay.
And so the issue that I have with it is, and it's so weird that I'm about to say this because I hated this about the other renditions of Spider-Man, but this is a high school movie, and I think that's fine.
Yes.
But there are some really tired cliches that happen in it, like, the whole slow motion, not paying attention when Liz walks by.
Yes.
I just was like, why does it have to be in this movie like that, like we've seen it a billion times before?
Yeah.
That's like such a huge cliche.
Yeah.
And I had a problem with Liz being up on the ladder holding a homecoming banner when she's in a fucking miniskirt. and now I'm sorry for dropping an F-bomb.
Yeah, thanks.
Because because in that scene, but I'm sorry, I don't want to see a 16-year-old in a miniskirt on a ladder. I don't. It would never happen that way. And at least, and this isn't any better, but when Sam Raimi did his trilogy, he used to say, and he was very open about this, that he knew who the audience was.
Yes.
So occasionally in those movies, there would be a shot of like 20-something-year-old women seeing Spider-Man. Yes. He understood who the audience was. It's a little bit different now, and I think Spider-Man's reached across the aisle. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that that's any better, but I just don't want to see like that sort of BS. Like, there are adults filming this. It seems like they should be able to figure out other ways of doing the whole high school, the whole high school melodrama.
Which I guess
think is a bit played.
I guess that makes sense. Had they just not have they not did in order to appease you, had they not did the slow motion thing, and then she wasn't wearing a mini skirt on the ladder and just jeans, but they were still looking at her. Would that be enough to know that he's definitely highly interested in her?
I mean, it's so over the top, but yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That was my question. It was a yes or no question, and you answered it. Okay, continue.
Whatever. I mean, there are other scenes, of course, but it's just like whatever. I'm just not even gonna get it because it's all pointless. Because she isn't MJ. She's not MJ.
She's not
so
MJ.
It's all an exercise in futility because we have MJ in the next one.
Yes.
I thought the timeline was really confusing because I started thinking about it, and if you're doing math, they have this jump. They have this 8 years later jump.
Yes.
From the Avengers. The Avengers was shot, and it was supposed to take place in 2012. But if you jump 8 years later, it actually and this is a modern day movie. it actually makes the Avengers take place in 2008, which I think doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
This movie should be set in like 2020 as a result. If you're going from the original Avengers timeline, it just seems like people over at Marvel can't do simple math.
I don't even know what to say right now.
So basically, when we watched the Avengers, we were, and here's the thing. Okay, so let's say that the numbers don't matter. Okay. Let's say that in 2012 we were all watching the Avengers, Joss Whedon's Avengers.
Yeah.
And we were actually looking at a period piece because we did not know it was 2008. They have a habit of doing this. There was an Iron Man movie that was in 1999. And it's such a stretch. That something that happened in 1999 is relevant today. That someone would hold a grudge for so long. I love how your head's just down over there.
Because this is ridiculous.
No, it is not ridiculous. Part of this conversation. There are no Avengers right now. First of all, when this takes place, which is after Civil War, Stark had already moved out of the tower.
Yes.
So tell me how that makes sense. He had already made a new home.
Yes, and that's the home that's in. The thing that confuses me is I swear that's the one that's in Civil War, right?
Yes, it is. So damn it, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so that makes more sense to me because when I saw that confused me because I'm like, wait a minute. This looks like the same one that was in Civil War, but that's already happened. So it was already built. So
it was already built.
So I guess maybe the only way I can think of it is it had been built for a while and it just took them a while to move all their stuff over. Jeez. That's the only thing I can think of that would make the timing make sense. That's the only thing that makes the timing make sense.
The other thing is he and Pepper were separated, and I hate that it's just assumed
that they reconciled. That they reconcile.
And that it's not shown. I mean, no, it's not shown. That drives me nuts.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
So that's sort of my whole timeline. You know, we were hoodwinked back in 2012, and we were actually watching a movie that was set in 2008. And so who knows what's really going on. I'm going to find out that Black Panther was made in 2049.
All right, whatever. Move on. I cannot believe this.
I'm not the one with the problem. You're acting like I'm crazy over here. And so the last thing which we talked about is that I felt like most of what happened is entirely Stark's fault.
Yeah.
He wasn't a mentor,
no.
You know, and Tony screwed the pooch.
He did.
You know, this whole FBI taking down the Vulture thing. What would have happened if Peter Parker wasn't there?
Right?
I mean, those guys got their asses kicked by Vulture. So, yeah. All right. Fine. God, you're such... I bring up math, which is a subject you're very good at, and you just don't want anything to do with the fact that people at a very large company cannot subtract.
All right. God damn it. Let's get into the likes. Jeez. So
I am not crazy here. Damn it. Your head was down the entire time. If I was over there, I would have just hit you with a book. What's this? A book in your house?
Oh, that's hilarious. It probably would have been one of Jackie's books because
this is a nice textbook. This is by far, I think, one of the weirder podcasts that we've had.
Oh yeah, this one's all. And that's fine
because I'm going to enjoy listening to this.
Oh, it's all over the place. I'm sure the audience is not going to love how much we've detailed. We've had so many details.
I'm sorry, but this movie should offend math aficionados and time And people who make clocks.
The likes. We are getting people into the likes.
Clocks.
Nope.
Clock maker.
Nope.
Oh, fine. Fine.
You've done your quirks. All right. So.
Fine.
One of my likes about this is I absolutely love his character, and I love a lot of the character in this movie in general. Not just Spider-Man. I love all the characters around him, too.
Damn it. Yes. Okay.
So it's just like awesome. So Spider-Man...
Anything specific?
Spider-Man's... Okay, I'll get to that. Spider-Man is dead on. Like, he's just exactly how you expect him to be. It continues that attitude that he has in Civil War that was done so well. And it does it in this one throughout. It's just so perfect. Just like him having the conversations with Happy over and over again. And him just, cracking jokes while taking out bad guys is something that is hallmark to Spider-Man, and just everything is just right. They just got the character down perfect, and I love it. Now, talking about the characters throughout, I really like his friend Ned. His friend Ned, having that guy is just so cool. It's such a different version of this character, but it works really well throughout this movie. And they just they really feel like best friends, and he acts like a best friend, especially like a teenager, high school best friend. All that stuff is happening exactly how you think it would be. He's just so great, and I just love how I love the payoff of his simple little thing where he's just like, I could be your guy in the chair, and it pays off towards the end where he actually becomes the guy in the chair, and he makes the thing. He spins around in the chair. Guy in the chair. And it's just such a great scene. It's like actually a payoff of something so little in the movie, but it's so great. And there's a lot of that in this movie where that happens, and having his friend kind of save him too versus the Shocker, this version of the Shocker was really cool too, where he just he gets his web shooter and then tosses it to him. So it was just so cool with this character, and that happens throughout this whole movie. And so I just absolutely loved all the character in this movie. The other thing that I like, moving on with the characters also, is I really, this is a different version of the Vulture, but it's close enough to where I really enjoyed how they did the Vulture, even though his motivation was started in a really weird way because Tony Stark. I thought the villain himself was just a good villain. I just really liked how it was done. I like how Michael Keaton acts in the movie, and I just love how they handled all of those things. And one of my favorite scenes in this movie, that involves him, is a really simple scene, but I really enjoy when he finally confronts him, and he specifically says to him, Spider-Man, or says, I know that selling guns to bad guys is a bad thing. I know it's bad to do that. And his response is, how do you think Tony Stark got his fortune?
Right, yeah.
I absolutely love that line, and that's one of those lines that, to me, really shows that Marvel took on the reins of this, because you're saying a very negative thing about a flagship character, but it's true. And so
absolutely.
Yes, and so it really shows me that they know their characters, and so I really enjoyed that line. It's such a little line, but it makes so much sense that he says that. And that's something that if Sony had just done this alone, that would have never happened. And so it's just stuff like that I really love the way they did it. I like the extreme version of going to prom with a girl and meeting the father and having this high school type thing happen. And it's to the extreme because he finds out his dad or her dad is a Vulture. And it's just so it's just so good in that scene. I really enjoyed that too. The way he threatens him. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, I thought the Vulture was spot on. I love the scene in the car when he finally confronts Peter, but there's something about him that's relatable because he's a dad, he's married, and he has a kid.
Yes.
And so the entire time I was thinking, as I was watching it, I was thinking, because we've talked about this before, that's almost never the case with villains.
Yes.
I think we talked about this on Despicable Me.
Yes.
Having a villain who's actually married, that's like such a rare thing.
It is.
But to have one who's a kid and who's, so I started thinking it was driving me nuts because I was like, who's he going to be related to? And then it hit me right before the door opened.
Yes.
That he was going to be the one behind it. And I love that. I love the build up. I love the scene in the car, two guys talking in a car.
Yep, two guys talking in the car. The build up you're talking about where they're taking photos, he handovers the corsage, and he's just giving him this look the whole time. So they increase this intensity all the way up until he figures it out in the car with just a few little questions, and he knows. Everything is just great. That whole build up for this character and this villain and the interaction between Peter Parker and Vulture is so well done. It's just, they did a fantastic job, and I absolutely loved it. What else? Did you have anything else for this before I move on?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the only other thing I have to say is I enjoyed all the references to the universe. It's nice to see that Sony has allowed Marvel to come in and connect everything to an overall universe. And so I enjoyed that the movie started out with the repair of New York. So, it's harking back to what happened before and moving the story forward. It was kind of a weird jump, but I liked the connection. I enjoyed seeing just little funny scenes with Captain America throughout the whole thing. I really enjoyed him having the other characters in the movie without having the other characters in the movie with those bank robbers, where he's able to say something like Thor, Hulk, Iron Man. Like, he's able to say things like that, right, which couldn't happen in another movie if Marvel wasn't involved, because it would have been a separate thing because of Sony. So I just enjoyed all of that in this entire movie, and I just really enjoyed that it's a part of the universe, like it's embraced it, and that's awesome. And that's all I have to say. So what do you got?
Yeah, well, just touching on that really quickly, the fact that the movie starts with Sony's credits.
Yes. And
we see a little villain empire being built. Yes. Before rolling into Marvel's opening Marvel's scene, which I love because music. It was to Spider-Man's music.
Yes.
And they added for the first time Spider-Man into their logo with the other heroes. Yes. And I mean, that's like such a huge deal. And like you were saying, because it's spot on, we don't get this kind of story that, touches on the larger Marvel universe, which is, how the comic books would be.
Yes, it is.
We don't get sort of the clever Captain America cameos where he's in all those presidential fitness tapes. The fact that schools are forced to show him, even though now it seems like he's a bad guy.
I think I thought that's hilarious. I'm pretty sure this guy's a war criminal now.
This guy's a war criminal, but we got to show these anyway. That's great. Like, such a great little line.
Now that you've said that, I gotta touch on another one of my likes. Like, sure, the gym teacher. This is along with the characters throughout this movie that are just background characters. That gym teacher shows up twice, and he has just this funny scene in both of them where, like, Peter Parker tries to walk out of detention, and he does this really just kind of like, hey, where are you going? Like, clearly doesn't care.
Doesn't go after him.
No, doesn't go after him. And then you have, like, kind of like in the scene where you have freaking Happy Hogan and Peter Parker in the bathroom and has that kid there, and he just gives them this look that's just like, hell are you guys doing? And then he just walks away. There's just a lot of that happening throughout this entire movie where somebody just pops in that's like an extra. And
they steal the scene. And like they steal the scene. With one-liner. Like, that's what I loved about the scene where there's just, where the side, what is his name? Ned.
Yeah, Ned
is just sort of waiting by that window, and there's two kids.
Oh yeah,
from the chess club who are just looking at him like, "What's he doing out there?" And so they go and say something to him.
It's just so appropriate. It's so awesome.
But that bathroom scene at the end with Happy, which is so uncomfortable, but it's so accurate because. Because I feel like, especially for, because women may not know, I think it's such a different, the bathroom experience is so different for them.
Yeah, it is.
But for guys, it's like, you don't want to talk to another dude in the restroom.
No, you don't.
So to have a guy in a suit just sort of standing there in the way is crazy.
Right?
I mean, you would want to get the hell out of there. But I love that he washes his hands and dries it. And he's just that kid is just super annoyed anyway.
Oh yeah.
which meant that Happy was standing in there having to smell while this kid's taking a dump and everything.
Oh,
and it's just that's just stuff that guys.
Oh yeah. That's hilarious. Oh man. So good.
You touched on the characters, and you're right. I think this is the best. I would say I've had this discussion before. I thought maybe Andrew Garfield at the time was better with the Spider-Man type scenes.
Yes, I would agree.
But that Toby was a better Peter Parker.
Yes, I would agree.
I think Tom Holland is better at both of these things than either of those two guys.
Yep.
I think that sort of puts it to rest. At some point, someone's going to take over the reins for Iron Man, and they're going to have a really tough act to follow. Marvel has two characters. I would say those two guys and Wolverine. There will always be standalone movies for those three characters. And we'll always wonder, it's funny that Spider-Man, has already had three different actors.
Yeah, and it hasn't been very long.
And it hasn't been very long. And really, the first movie that hit really big, if you think about it, going way back, was when Bryan Singer did X-Men.
Yes.
And so that's really when studios started putting big money into comic book franchises, and Spider-Man followed. But if you think about it, Hugh Jackman survived much longer than anyone else in the web-slinging outfit. So that's sort of funny to think about. I actually liked what they did with MJ in this movie.
I enjoyed MJ also.
And I kept looking at her because I thought it was really suspicious that they had this character who pretty much was stealing all the scenes that she was in. Yeah. And they weren't saying her name.
They weren't.
They went about halfway through the movie before someone even calls her Michelle. Yes. And I was like, I mean, that's close enough. She's got to be MJ. It would be really cool to see her, like blossom and maybe become a love interest in the next film.
Yeah.
Just because I like her disposition. She definitely gives him a little look at the end of the movie.
Yes, he does.
So, we'll see. I mean, that's really, Peter, when you think of Peter Parker, you think of MJ.
Yeah.
And so I like that it's different. I like that it's a little bit more diverse, but they went ahead and changed something with the character too.
Yes, they did.
I like the parallels between Spider-Man and Vulture. There's an age difference there, but it's so cool to have a villain talking about his wife, and it almost seems like they're in some ways cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
So, I like that this wasn't a villain who simply died at the end of the movie, which is what Marvel's been known to do.
Yeah.
But that even when Vulture maybe has a chance to give Peter Parker up, he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, and it's very, when you're saying cut from the same cloth, it's why that scene with them in like the warehouse is so good too, where he's talking about how do you think he got his fortune, and how he's saying they don't care about guys like us. It's because he's just a kid from Queens. So it's such a nice scene to have that in there and have it relatable to where they're kind of similar in some way. So,
definitely, yeah. I like that when Spider-Man was beaten, he managed to pick himself up.
That's an extremely important scene.
Yeah, it was crucial. I love the way that he did it. I love that he talked himself through it, and he did it without the fancy suit. And the thing is, the suit, the one that Tony gives him, this is a really interesting departure, because in the comic books, Spider-Man is constantly talking to himself.
Yes.
And I thought it was really interesting to give him a voice to speak to. It's a change, and I'm sort of on the fence about it, but I like that he has someone in his ear. And whether that ends up being Ned in the next movie, it works. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's cool to have those scenes where, he's like stuck in that warehouse and, he's just goofing around, and they allow him to be both at the same time, both Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
Yes.
Yep. Because he's wearing his jacket and he's like flying around with all of his web shooter combinations.
Yeah, that's so good.
I really liked the fight sequence on the jet. I just thought that was amazing. Yeah, I thought it was terrifying how they had the Vulture move, almost like a vulture that's on the ground, where he's like just, digging his wings, and, like that's sort of the thing that's sort of like the aerial thing that, I think Sam Raimi always wanted to try, but really couldn't. Mm-hmm. The technology wasn't there.
Yep.
So I loved how the Vulture fought. I was a little underwhelmed at the sequence on the beach. I kind of thought maybe it could have gone a different way, but I liked that Peter saved him.
Yes.
And so, Toombs is a guy who has integrity.
Yes.
And, he's definitely sort of he's definitely a guy who will protect Peter, like he saved Peter's life by not telling Scorpion what his identity was at the end. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's like a lot of little cameos going on.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of cameos
in this movie. And there's already other villains.
Yes.
You could at some point theoretically get a full Shocker.
Yep, a full Shocker
costume.
Yep.
And Scorpion is definitely in this movie.
Yes.
And he's a really dangerous villain. So I really liked how they handled the villain in this movie. I liked that it was a parallel for Spider-Man, and that they broke tradition. They got out of this funk where Marvel just hasn't been handling their villains correctly.
Yeah.
So I think that's it from me.
All right. So I guess we're gonna rate this sucker then, huh?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's arguably the best Spider-Man movie we've seen. I think it's the only one that I think comes close is Spider-Man 2, which is really good also, surprisingly. It's kind of a shame that third movie really hurts those other first two. But the second was really good, and like it has a similar feeling to it, like how they handled the villain, because the way they did the villain with Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 was great too. And so it has like a lot of that feel to it, but I think this one's still better. And so I think it's arguably one of the best Spider-Man movie, and I think it's overall just a great Marvel movie too. Like considering all the Marvel movies that are out that are really good, this one's up there. So I'm going to say see it, buy it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with see it. Okay. I think there's a couple little issues that I have with it. As far as thinking about it, I mean, we're pretty spoiled. I really liked Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman was
just
fantastic.
Came out.
Yep.
It's amazing that we have such good superhero movies back to back.
Right? It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, you're right. And I wonder how this one will be remembered as because I feel like this belongs up there. This sort of needs to be in the debate.
Yes.
And so I almost want to see it again, just because there's enough going on here where I feel like this is maybe in contention for one of the best superhero movies ever made.
Yeah, it's really
and I think the villains and how they nailed Peter Parker has a lot to do with that.
Yep. All right, then I guess we're gonna sign out then. If anybody wants to contact us, we always have our home on the web, halfpastpodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes and Google Play.
We're on Stitcher and Libsyn.
And you can always email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Yes, and so we'll read your questions on the air.
Yep.
But we cannot do call-ins for the one person who asked me.
Well, somebody else has asked me too, and I'm just like, we don't do this live. There's no way for you.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any
nonsensical. Maybe an audio recording. Everyone's got cell phones.
Oh yeah, you could always send in an audio recording, doable. And I have no problem tossing that into the podcast. Right. Also.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
it can be edited in.
Yep.
Tweet us at Half Past Podcast.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Next week we have War for the Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
So every time there's one of these movies, I never want to go, but I'm always glad that I did.
Nice.
It's like I really don't want to go and see this, but I know I'm going to be glad that I did.
Oh, that's hilarious! That's such a weird endorsement for that movie.
I mean, the last one was just so damn good.
Oh, it was like, really good.
This is great.
Dawn was really good. Oh yeah.
Andy Serkis should have gotten an Academy Award.
Yeah, he should have. He didn't even get a nom. I don't even think he got a nom. I don't understand.
They just don't get it. They don't understand. He's there acting the entire time.
The entire time he's on set every day. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's just digital makeup. It's
digital makeup.
If he was just in an ape costume, they probably would give him more credit. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's terrible.
Right. Or if he was just in makeup,
right?
as like some hybrid.
I don't know, man.
If it wasn't Planet of the Apes, if it was Return of the Cavemen, and he was the king of the cavemen, would he have gotten a nod?
Right? It's absolutely ridiculous, and he does such a good job as Caesar, and he's always done a good job with all his characters. But I think I like Caesar the best somehow. I don't know how that's possible. But I think he's just so good as Caesar. All right, man. Jeez. Just give him a freaking shot, guys. I don't know what to say about that. This is the Half Past Podcast.
Ian Malcolm laughed.
I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.
I had to think about my music.